do you think that there is a separation of church and state?
I believe there should be. And I believe for the most part, yes. For the most part.
Okay.
For the most part. However...
And you're thinking of it in the founder's point of view. That
yes.
Government does not oppress
the church. Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So you don't think that happens very much?
Okay. I don't think it has happened very much.
Okay.
However, I believe that it has begun to happen. In other words, I believe there's begun to be an encroachment by the state on the church.
Okay. How?
So, all right. So, for example, the state does not have the right to say when the church will worship.
Okay.
Okay. It cannot restrict the gathering of worship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And however, we know that even during a pandemic like COVID, that it was attempted, that there was an attempt by states to actually restrict the gathering of people for worship.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
and the First Amendment covers everything that happens underneath the states. So the states can't do that.
Correct.
Otherwise, they're in violation of the First Amendment. Okay.
Which is why they lost their lawsuits.
Okay.
Yeah. And so...
all of them?
So
like most of them?
Most of them.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. And so there was one church, for example, that just never closed, kept having their worship, and the state government was just going to fine them just out the wazoo for it all. And they just said, no, we're not going to stop. And then after it was all said and done, they filed lawsuits, and they ended up winning the lawsuits against the state. And so, and listen, most churches, when the pandemic was happening, recognized the fact that for the safety of their people, we've got to reconsider meeting together,
right?
Or where it would be,
because
what it would
old
look
people
like.
Come to church.
Yeah, well, but it was a protection of everybody, right? And so the government has to give space for the church to be able to discern, right? And so, I mean, in the same way that they gave private corporations the ability to discern, right? The church has to have the same rights, and the state does not have, in the same way, the state or the government does not have the right to tell the church what to believe and what religious orders or what religious ceremonies to uphold.
Okay. And you're pulling this all from First Amendment.
I'm pulling, yeah, but even in Jefferson's letter, where he, like, in other words, if we're going to use Jefferson's letter now in court cases, we got to use all of it, not just parts of it.
Okay.
And I think it's a reach to even use any of it because he was writing a personal letter.
Right.
It wasn't like it was a state document.
Right.
And so, but if you're going to use any of it, then use the part where he talks about the fact that we will not get involved in now, they're okay. The church has always been okay with if there's a random sect that labels himself a religion that's actively harming people, right?
Right.
Sure, the government has to clamp down on that. No one's arguing that. But within its own practices and within its own opinions and beliefs, the church and the state or the government should be separated.
Okay.
The government should not be reaching in to tell the church how to practice their beliefs, in other words, and even what beliefs to have.
Okay, so the other way around then, the way the people view it now.
Correct.
Do you think there is a separation of church and state?
Do I think...
Is that a correct way of viewing it?
Okay.
Should it be viewed that way at all?
Right.
And in
other words, is it okay if church is influencing government?
Yes.
Yes. It's always been okay.
Okay.
Because it's okay for any religion.
So there's people who don't think that should happen.
Sure.
So what is their argument and why are they wrong, I guess?
Okay. Well, but so their position would be the fact that government and religion should never intertwine.
Okay.
Okay. And that that religion is actually the danger to the government.
Right.
Okay. Where obviously when it was originally written, it was viewed as the other way around. That the government was the danger to the church.
So couldn't religion be a danger to the government?
Could religion be a danger to the government?
Right.
The founding fathers believed that a religious morality had to exist for our form of government to actually work.
So beliefs and not practices.
Right.
Beliefs and not things I do in the name of religion.
Right. Like a moral worldview.
Okay.
Or a biblical worldview, moral Judeo-Christian worldview, whatever you want to call it. But the morals that are found within that Judeo-Christian worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying. I know all the founding fathers weren't Christians, but they all understood the importance of the morality of a Judeo-Christian worldview being the backbone of a country that is considered free and independent.
This is that where you get to in the talking about this, where it's like, you just have to trust me.
I got you.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they had a different worldview. Well, I wasn't around then, so
Sure.
I don't know what that worldview looked like.
Right.
And so what did they mean by all this? We can just guess.
Yeah. Well, but you can extrapolate. No, you're not guessing.
Okay.
You're extrapolating it from their own writings. I mean, you can take the founding fathers' writings and just lay them out there, and it's pretty clear to see what they understood when they said religion.
Okay.
That religion was Christianity. Right? That's how they understood religion. Now, I'm not saying
Right.
they all practiced it or they all followed it, but that's what they understood it to mean.
Because there's Satanists now
Sure.
that want to put a bunch of stuff that you don't like underneath the like religious freedom in
Sure.
the religious freedom column,
Right.
like abortion, which
Okay.
I assume you don't like.
But that's not.
And so if they want if the government is not supposed to tell you not to practice your religion, then why are they allowed to tell them they can't practice theirs?
Okay. So I think we're making distinctions here too,
Okay.
right? Between religious practices, okay, and ethics and morals and values, okay?
So okay.
So what I'm saying is, so that's why I was pausing for a second, because because we always have to allow, like, this isn't just Christianity should be allowed to have freedom of religion. This is any religion should have the freedom of religion. Okay? So the Satanists, the Muslims, the Hindus, they all should have the freedom to worship their God or whatever they choose to worship.
Mm-hmm.
They have the freedom to do that, as long as it's not, and that's where they were talking about earlier when Jefferson's writing with the Danbury Baptists, as long as that the practices, the actions are not causing a civil discourse. In other words, not civil discourse, but not causing like civil, basically breaking the law in civil action. In other words,
so like, if your religious practice encroaches on my religious practice, then that's not allowed.
Yeah, it's like, so for
like
example,
you can believe whatever you want to believe,
Sure.
but if your religion is telling you to kill me,
correct. There we go.
then we stop you.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Because you can go over here and worship and do whatever you want and pray that way,
Sure.
and I can go pray this way,
Absolutely.
and that doesn't hurt anybody.
Absolutely.
But okay.
Yeah. So for example, we break this down to like a practical part of like a local school, right?
Okay.
So I'm in a local school, and they've got their, Bible clubs or church clubs, that are happening before or after school hours, right? And they've got a teacher, sponsoring it, that kind of thing. Okay. And so you got all these various clubs. What I'm saying is you've got to allow for all of it.
Right.
Not just the Christian club. You've got to allow for the Muslim club, the Hindu club, the Satanist club, the the Wiccan club, right? Like you got to allow for all of it, is what I'm saying. As long as within those contexts that like physical harm isn't occurring to people outside the group or within the group.
That the Christian kid isn't beating up the Wiccan kid because
right.
Because that's, right, okay.
Right, they were told to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think what's happened in the landscape now is that idea that freedom from religion instead of having the freedom for religion. And so now it's like, all right, we want to remove all religion and deem the government as only secular.
Right.
Okay. The problem with that is that you've got the government itself is not just this government enterprise. It's ran by individuals.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In other words, there's individuals that are at play in it. We're electing politicians, right? And so we're having a part to play in who's our president and who's our congressman.
Right.
And so it's okay to vote for people according to your religious convictions, whatever those religious convictions are.
You're skipping ahead. I was trying to slow roll it, but
whatever. Here we go. But
keep going.
Yeah. So, and so we're trying to allow the space for people to be able to have a religious influence in their voting. That's okay.
Okay.
And so it's not a freedom from religion. It's a freedom for it. No, we're actually allowed to do this. Now, if you want to put a wall there, but at the same time, one religious group cannot say, but we're running everything and everything has to run via us.
Right.
And no, that's where there actually is a separation of church and state.